Hey guys, hope you all did well on the micro test, and if you have want to talk about it, we can tomorrow. We gotta wait. Don't do it today. But I will be online starting at like 9 o'clock tomorrow. If you guys if you have any questions over macro or anything you I want me to go back over. I'm just gonna have it open, and when someone bings in, I'll come answer questions. Or if you want to email me, um, that'll work too. So, but I posted the macro practice exam that the College Board had, the sample. Same rules. The question one will be two parts of two short answer questions. You have 25 minutes. So you have 25 minutes to answer and then 5 minutes to actually submit it. And as you saw today, there should be a clock that counts down. And when it gets to 5 minutes, it'll turn red. Then you know you have 5 more minutes to get it turned in. And then question two is 15 with 5 minutes to turn in. So it's the same time limit. So 40 minutes of work and 10 minutes to get it all submitted, 5 for each question. All right. And I hope everyone I know they've been having some issues getting things submitted. I hope everything went well for you guys. And if you had to use the backup submission thing, I hope it worked. And if not, then you'll have to go in and reschedule yourself for the makeup exam in June. Um, so, but if you had any issues, let myself or Mr. Puckett know. Okay. But so for the macro exam, so the first one, this is a GDP question, GDP, and I hope they give you a GDP question, guys. Remember all GDP is the dollar value of everything that was made in the country. So they give you a little chart like this, man, you should be able to knock it out of the park. So we have country X, and they make their goods they made 2009 is the base year. So it says calculate A and B. So remember, and it says in the note, this year's exam, students will be expected to show all your work on any calculation question. So nominal GDP says calculate the nominal GDP for 2010. So they actually want to see you say 8 times 2.5 equals 20. 10 times 10 equals 100. 5 times 5 is 25. And then since it's GDP, you add it all together. So 20 plus 100 plus 25 gives you a GDP of 145. Real GDP in 2010. Remember, guys, all real GDP is the 2010 quantity, but with the 2009 prices. Since 2009 was the base year, real GDP is the value of everything expressed in the base year. So you do the same thing. 8 times 2.5 is 20. 10 times 6 is 60. 5 times 4 is 20. 20 plus 60 plus 20 is 100, right? They actually want you to write all of that out. And remember, this year, they're saying you can use a calculator. You really should not have needed a calculator on that question. I'm just saying. But you can use one this year. But that's what the normal, typical questions. I told you all year, you guys can't use calculator, can't use. That's why. This is what they do on the test. That's easy enough math. Um, I feel like I could ask my second grader 4 times 2, and she could do it without a calculator.
6.
Oh, or I'd be wrong. So, whatever.
Oh, 8.
8, yeah. So, not to put you on the spot, but put you on the spot. That's all right. So, part C, this is calculating inflation. So, remember, inflation, guys, it's the old year. It's the recent year minus the old year divided by the old year times 10 to make it a percentage. So, 50, if in 1 year the price index is 50 and the next year it's 55, what's the rate of inflation? 55 minus 50 divided by 50, which gives you an answer of 0.1 times 10 to make it a percentage. So that country had a 10% inflation rate. And then they would actually want to see you write all that out. Right? D, assuming that next year's wage rates are 3% higher than this year's because of inflationary expectations, but the actual inflation rate is 4%. At the beginning of next year, will your real wages be higher, lower, or the same as today? Your wages will actually be lower. Why? Because if they give you a 3% raise, but inflation's 4%, remember real wages is your raise minus the inflation rate. So 3 minus 4 is negative 1%. So you actually will be making less money even though you got a 3% raise. Real wages, right? So your money will buy less than it actually did the year before. And then part E, assume that Sarah gets a fixed rate loan from a bank with an expected inflation rate, or the expected inflation rate was 3%. Actual inflation turns out to be 4%. Who benefits from the unexpected inflation? Sarah, the bank, neither or both. Explain. Sarah benefits. Why? She's paying the loan she's paying back. She's paying back in money that's worth less than she borrowed. So since she got a fixed rate loan, her rate is locked in. So the higher inflation rate means it's easier for her to make her payments because she's paying back in money that's got less real value. So she benefits. That's why you should not get remember I told you when we were going through this, if you learn anything about anything, don't ever get an adjustable rate mortgage when you buy your house, because they can rate, when inflation goes up, they can raise the interest rates. Lock it in. Then it doesn't matter. But I told you banks will try to lure you in, but well, if you do the ARM loan right now, we can get it down to 1.5%. But then what you forget is that when inflation goes up in 3 years, your interest rate goes from 1.5 to 8, and then you can't afford your house anymore. So lock it in, right? The second question here is comparative advantage, absolute advantage, using PPC curves, right? So remember, absolute advantage is just who can do the most. Which country has the absolute advantage of machines? Luna. And it says explain. And I promise you, this is economics. Your explain does not have to be like English, like essay. Which country has the absolute advantage in production of machines? Luna. Explain. 40 is greater than 10. That's all you need to do. That can be your explanation. Luna makes 40 machines. Ashna makes 10. Who has the absolute advantage? Luna. Why? 40 is more than 10. Right? Which country has the absolute advantage in the production of food? Luna. Explain. 40 is more than 30. Right? Which country has the comparative advantage in the production of machines? So guys, remember on comparative advantage, it helps. It really helps to make the chart. Go ahead and make your little chart. So I did on this one. Let's see if we can. Oh, move it this way a little bit. So I have Asha and Luna, machines, food, and then do your math. So this is an output question. So remember, so it asks you who has the comparative advantage in the production of machines. So looking at machines, right? Luna can do 40 machines or 40 food. Ashna can do 10 machines or 30 food. So what the comparative advantage is based on the opportunity cost. So one machine equals how much food does Luna have to give up to make a machine? It's 40 divided by 40. The other number goes over. So one machine equals one food for Luna. For Ashna, they give up one machine, so you have to put 30 over 10. One machine equals 3 food for Ashna. So Luna has the comparative advantage, and then it says explain. 1 is less than 3. That's why they have the comparative advantage. They have the lower opportunity cost. You could also say Luna has the lower opportunity cost if you feel like you don't want to press your luck and just do 1 less than sign 3 because you're feeling scared. You can say Luna has the lower opportunity cost because 1's less than 3. Right? The next part I, with trade between the two countries, which country will import food? Explain. Luna will import food. Luna's going to make machines. Ashna will do food. How do I know? For Ashna, one food for Ashna only costs a third of a machine. For Luna, one food costs one machine. So Ashna is going to grow the food. They have the lower opportunity cost. So Luna will import food. Why? And you would need to say Ashna has the comparative advantage in growing food, right? And then give an example of terms of trade. And I know someone asked this question yesterday. This is a question that comes up a lot, is on how we do the terms of trade. I should have wrote this a little bigger. Now I can't find my pen. All right, guys, I tried to write this a little bigger. So remember, for Ashna, hold on. I got my countries backwards. Hold on. This is what happens when you try to do something in a hurry. All right, so for Luna, that one machine equals one food. For Ashna, one machine was 3 foods. So if they're going to trade, Ashna will have to pay food for the machine. Luna wants to get food for a machine. So we're looking at the cost of food here. So for Luna to give up a machine, they have to get more than 1 unit of food. That's they're not going to give up one of their machines for anything less than, they're going to have to get more than one. For Ashland, they don't want to pay more than 3 foods for a machine. If it costs them more than 3 foods to get a machine, they can just do it themselves. So what's a good term of trade? 2 food for 1 machine. That's what the terms of trade are. You're looking for, what is this country going to be willing to accept? What's the most this country is willing to pay, and then pick a number between them. So if it had been 1 and 5, 2, 3, or 4 foods for a machine would have been good terms of trade. All right, so that's the terms of trade on that one. And then the last question says using a correctly labeled graph, but then it says note, this part of the question could not be asked in the current form since you're not required to draw graphs this year. The question instead would be asked, what would be the impact of a sudden large decrease in private investment spending on output and price level? Explain. So you're not worrying about graphing, but they could do this, right? So if there was a large sudden decrease in private investment, what'll happen to output and price level? Explain. Remember what adds up, what aggregate demand is. SIGX, consumer spending, investment spending, government spending, net exports. So if there is a sudden large decrease in investment, so I suddenly drops real low, what'll happen to output? That's going to decrease aggregate demand, so output will fall. And then it says explain. Output will fall because there will be a decrease in investment, which shifts the aggregate demand curve to the left. Price level will fall because the aggregate demand curve shifted to the left. Right? Using the results in part A, what will happen to employment? Employment will decrease because there will be less output, so firms will want fewer workers. Right? So this is what it said to have scrap paper and draw the graphs, and it'll help you. But then you would just explain it in words, right? So output will fall because there will be less demand for the goods because investment spending fell. Price level will fall because there will be less demand for the goods because of less investment, right? Employment will decrease because there will be fewer goods being made, right? Identify a specific fiscal policy that might be implemented to offset the effects of the decrease in investment. And if you're not sure what will happen to investment, there it just tells you, right? Explain how the policy would affect each of the following. So remember, there's fiscal policy is only taxes and spending. So if aggregate demand is decreasing, we need an expansionary fiscal policy. You're either going to cut taxes or increase government spending. It just says to identify one. So whichever one you pick is fine. So you could say increase government spending. What will happen to aggregate demand? Aggregate demand will increase because of the increase in government spending. Output and price levels will increase because aggregate demand shifted to the right, which raises both of those. Interest rates will increase because of crowding out. The government's spending more money, or even if they cut taxes, they're probably going to be running a deficit. Crowding out, interest rates go up. Right, so that's the loanable funds market. The government's taking all the loans to pay off their deficit. The next one is monetary policy. Identify an open market operation the central bank might implement to offset a decrease in investment. Remember, open market operations, guys, is buying and selling bonds. That's all it is. The Fed has three tools: the reserve rate, the discount rate, open market operations. Reserve is how much banks are required to keep in them. The discount rate is the interest rate the Fed charges banks for a loan. Open market operations is buying and selling of bonds. In a recession, we need to increase money supply. Buying bonds equals big bucks. So they're going to buy bonds. What will happen to interest rates? Interest rates will drop. Why? This is the money market graph. I'm increasing the money supply. And what happens to the price of anything? Remember, guys, all interest is the price of borrowing money. What happens to the price of any good when there's more of it? They fall. So interest rates will decrease. What will happen to aggregate demand? Aggregate demand will shift to the right because lower interest rates means there's going to be more consumer spending and more investment. So C and I are going to increase. And then what'll happen to output and price level? Output and price level will both increase because aggregate demand shifted to the right. All right. And then notice it says Part K could not be asked this year because of Unit 6 is excluded. There will be nothing on this exam about the foreign exchange markets, international trade, tariffs, all that. There won't be any of that because that was what was cut from the test. So the only thing you would need to answer here is what will be the long run impact on inflation if the bank continues this? Inflation will increase. Why? The aggregate demand shifted to the right, so price levels going up. Inflation is a sustained increase in price level. So if the bank keeps doing this, inflation will go up. You also can say inflation will be caused because there's an increase in the supply of money. MV equals PQ, right? The monetary equation. Money supply times velocity equals price times quantity. If I increase the money supply and quantity is staying the same, price has to go up. And velocity always stays the same, right? So hopefully you guys were able to answer those questions. Like I said, guys, I'm going to open up a Google Meet at 9 o'clock, and I'll just have it open. And when anyone dings in, I will come talk to you guys if you have any questions over any of this stuff. So GDP, unemployment, inflation, ASAD, and then you got to be able. You don't have to. You won't need to draw all the graphs, but you got to remember. You'll have to explain what's happening. So fiscal policy, the government. Fiscal policy is Congress trying to stimulate or slow down the economy. Taxes and spending. That's the only two things they can use. Expansionary or contractionary. Expansionary fiscal policy, spend more, tax less. Contractionary fiscal policy, spend less, tax more, which the government hates doing. Monetary policy only can be done by the Fed. Reserve requirements, how much the banks are required to keep, discount rates, open market operation. Expansionary monetary policy, lower the reserve rate so banks can loan out more money, lower the discount rate. It makes it cheaper for banks to borrow money from the Fed. Buy bonds. Buying bonds equals big bucks. Contractionary monetary policy or tight money. Raise the reserve requirement. It slows loaning down. Raise the discount rate. Banks will be less likely to loan out money because it'll cost them more to get a loan to replace it. Sell bonds. Selling bonds equals small bucks. All right. So watch over this. Work the question. And then if you guys have any questions, email me. If you're studying tonight, I'll keep checking my email. I'll email you a response. And if you have any questions you want to ask in the morning, guys, I'll be here all morning until. I know your test is you got to log in at 2:30 for your test. Hope your test today went well, and I think, guys, you're ready for this. You can do it. So, hope to see some of you tomorrow. Bye.